Hulk Hogan. Hulk Hogan was basically wrestling in the 1980s. The guy took what was still viewed as this niche thing and turned it into something your mom and grandma knew about. He had the blonde hair, the 24-inch pythons as he called his arms, and this red and yellow color scheme that became impossible to miss. His finishing move was the leg drop, which honestly wasn't the most impressive thing in the world, but when Hogan did it, people lost their minds. Hulkamania swept through pop culture, and suddenly wrestlers were appearing on MTV and talk shows. Before Hogan, wrestling was regional. After him, it was everywhere. The Rock. Dwayne Johnson started as a third-generation wrestler who turned into something way bigger than wrestling. He had this insane charisma in the ring, doing this signature eyebrow raise that became iconic and yelling catchphrases like, "Can you smell what The Rock is cooking?" at crowds who went absolutely nuts for it. The guy was electric. He could talk trash better than anyone and back it up in the ring. Then he made the jump to Hollywood and actually succeeded where most wrestlers fail miserably. He became the most successful crossover star wrestling has ever produced, going from laying the smackdown in WWE to becoming one of the highest paid actors on the planet. Stone Cold. Stone Cold. Steve Austin was the face of WWE's Attitude Era in the late 90s, playing a blue-collar anti-hero who hated his boss and drank beer in the ring. His whole character was built around defiance, flipping the bird, stunning anyone who got in his way, and making Vince McMahon's life miserable every week. The feud between Austin and McMahon was electric because it tapped into something universal. Everyone's wanted to tell their boss off at some point. Austin 316 started as a promo line mocking a religious wrestler, but it became one of the most recognizable catchphrases in wrestling history, printed on millions of t-shirts and turning Austin into a mainstream icon. John Cena. John Cena became WWE's face for nearly 2 decades, matching Ric Flair's record with 16 world championships. He started as a rapper character in the early 2000s before evolving into the ultimate good guy with his "Never Give Up" motto and bright-colored merchandise. Fans were split on him. Kids loved him, but older audiences got tired of seeing him win constantly and dominate the main event scene. Outside wrestling, he holds the record for most Make-A-Wish visits by any celebrity, granting over 650 wishes for sick children. He also transitioned into Hollywood, landing roles in comedies and action films while still occasionally returning to WWE for special appearances. The Undertaker. The Undertaker debuted in 1990 as a supernatural character who supposedly couldn't feel pain and was connected to death itself. For 3 decades, Mark Calloway stayed in character almost religiously, rarely breaking the mystique even outside the ring. His entrance became legendary, this slow walk through fog with dramatic lighting and a gong, sometimes taking 5 full minutes before he'd even get in the ring. At WrestleMania, WWE's biggest event, he went undefeated for 21 straight years, a streak that became its own attraction. When Brock Lesnar finally beat him in 2014, the crowd sat in stunned silence. He retired officially in 2020, respected across the industry for commitment to his character that basically no one else could match. Randy Savage. Randy Savage was one of those wrestlers who seemed bigger than life itself, and that wasn't by accident. The guy had a raspy voice that sounded like gravel in a blender, wore neon tights and sequined robes that could probably be seen from space, and delivered promos with this manic intensity that made you lean forward. His real name was Randy Poffo, and he came from a wrestling family. What separated him from other showmen was that he could actually wrestle. He combined high-flying moves with technical precision, which was rare for someone so flashy. His partnership with Miss Elizabeth added this whole dramatic layer to his storylines that made everything feel more important. Ric Flair. Ric Flair built his entire persona around excess. The robes cost thousands, the limousines were always white stretch models, and that "woo" became the most imitated sound in wrestling history. He held 16 world championships across different promotions, though the exact count gets disputed depending on who's doing the math. What made Flair special wasn't just the flash, it was how he worked a match. He could make anyone look good in the ring, selling moves like he'd been hit by a truck even when the opponent barely connected. His promos went on forever, all sweat and emotion, convincing you he was simultaneously the greatest and most vulnerable man alive. Shawn Michaels. Shawn Michaels was one of those wrestlers who could make everything look effortless even when he was doing something insane. He got his start in the late 80s as part of a tag team called The Rockers, but he really became a star when he went solo and started calling himself the Heartbreak Kid. The guy was athletic in a way that stood out even in wrestling, doing backflips off the top rope and hitting his signature move, Sweet Chin Music, which was basically a super kick that could come out of nowhere. He headlined WrestleMania so many times they started calling him Mr. WrestleMania. In the late 90s, he was one of the founding members of D-Generation X, which was basically a group of wrestlers who acted like rebellious frat guys and gave WWE an edgier attitude. Triple H started as Hunter Hearst Helmsley, this uptight Connecticut blue blood character that nobody really bought into. Then he joined up with Shawn Michaels, formed D-Generation X, and became the rebellious guy breaking all the rules in the late 90s. He turned into the game, won 14 world championships, and led Evolution with Randy Orton and Batista. The big career move, though, was marrying Stephanie McMahon in 2003, which eventually put him in the corporate side of things. Now he runs creative for WWE. Basically decides what storylines happen and who gets pushed. He went from wrestler to the guy calling the shots backstage. Bret Hart. Bret Hart earned the nickname Excellence of Execution by doing something most wrestlers couldn't pull off, making every single move look real and making it hurt without actually injuring anyone. He was a technical wrestler in an era when big muscled guys were body slamming each other for crowd pops, so he stood out by caring about the details. He won the WWE Championship 5 times and had a string of matches people still talk about, matches that felt less like stage fights and more like actual athletic contests. His whole career changed in Montreal in 1997 when Vince McMahon screwed him out of the title in front of his home crowd in a finish Bret hadn't agreed to. That moment, the Montreal Screwjob, became wrestling's most infamous backstage betrayal and basically ended Bret's relationship with WWE for years. Andre the Giant. Andre the Giant stood 7 feet 4 inches tall and weighed over 500 pounds at his peak. He was born in France with a condition called acromegaly, which caused his body to never stop growing. This condition made him physically massive but also caused him constant pain throughout his life. His wrestling career took off in the 70s and he became one of the most recognizable faces on the planet. His match against Hulk Hogan at WrestleMania 3 in 1987 drew over 90,000 people to the Pontiac Silverdome. Despite his intimidating size, Andre was known for being gentle and kind off camera. He could drink ridiculous amounts of alcohol in one sitting, sometimes over 100 beers. Roman Reigns. Roman Reigns spent years getting booed out of buildings as WWE tried to force him as their next big hero, pushing him into WrestleMania main events nobody wanted to see. The company just wouldn't listen to the fans rejecting him. Then, in 2020, he came back from a pandemic hiatus, completely transformed into the Tribal Chief, a calculated and ruthless heel who acknowledged his family's wrestling legacy and demanded everyone fall in line. He formed the Bloodline faction with family members and has held championship gold for over 3 years at this point, becoming the dominant force in modern wrestling. The switch from failed good guy to arrogant villain finally made him the star WWE always wanted him to be.